When the film begins, the audience isn't presented with a confronting display of oiled up and flexing bodybuilders, but instead an incongruous ballet scene in which we see Arnold and Franco participating in an activity that was at the time culturally associated with young women and homosexuals. It's a deliberate edit cleverly designed to disorient any audience preconceptions they bring to the topic of bodybuilding, and it sets up the viewer for 90 minutes of cognitive dissonance to follow. Beyond his physicality, which conveys an obvious projection of strength, it's the posture, assertiveness, and attitude that highlights Arnold's hypermasculinity. It's also the self-assuredness of Arnold in this opening ballet scene, which demonstrates not only a playful confidence, but also a goal-driven ambition to step out of his comfort zone and undertake an activity however different, yet complementary to his goals. Arnold doesn't care about possible sexual illusions. He's comfortable in his skin, and he does what he needs to succeed at his craft. Apart from the sprinkling of females that appear in the film, bodybuilding and gym culture are presented as a world largely bereft of women. This is no coincidence. The author of the Adonis Complex, Harrison Pope, notes the uptick in men joining gyms around the same time feminism and women's rights exploded. As women began to flex their rights, threatening male dominance, men responded by joining gyms to become physically stronger and more muscular. The women who do appear in the film are presented as mostly awkward insertions. Blink and you'll miss them props and trivial playthings for Arnold to display his own dominance and hyper-masculinity. Yet the filmmakers are quick to disavow any questions of sexual speculation on the viewer's part. From the outset, Arnold's heterosexuality is firmly established using targeted references to his girlfriend, and his now famous quote from the workout-induced pump, which is equivalent to having sex with a woman and coming. Masculinity is not only men proving themselves to other men, but also a marker of how men select and perceive each other in the social hierarchy. At the top of his game and in the small world of bodybuilding, Arnold is adored by fans and peers alike. Physically imposing, not just in his relative size compared to other bodybuilders, he towers over many of the men in scenes, projecting an even greater visual dominance of presence. As Eddie Giuliani relates, Gold's had been an intense place before, but Arnold upped the ante. 9:30 sharp, he'd walk through that door and everyone threw more plates on the bar. He'd ride you all day and the day after too. Arnold saw everything, and he didn't forget. You had to impress him no matter the cost. There were guys fainting after squats, guys throwing up in the alley. He was at a whole other level. When it comes to competition with others in his world, Arnold is not only the predetermined self-declared winner before he even competes, but this confidence is echoed by the other characters as well. Even at the Mr. Olympia contest, which is supposed to be a fair and unbiased competitive event, Reg Park, one of Arnold's mentors and inspirations for starting bodybuilding, introduces Arnold's presence on stage as the one and only, the greatest, Arnold Schwarzenegger. For Arnold, success is a mere afterthought and a natural byproduct of his complete masculine inventory. He's the biggest, the most articulate, and the most manly. He's a man of words and action, equipped with a confidence level bordering on the pathological. Above all, Arnold is a self-possessed Nietzschean Übermensch, displaying an unshaken commitment to his goals and a Terminator-like stoicism in the face of setbacks and challenges. Always in control of his emotions, he's not afraid of throwing up or passing out in the gym. He psychs out his rivals mercilessly, and he is so remorselessly focused, he has no time for distractions. In the documentary on the making of Pumping Iron, the filmmakers tried to get Schwarzenegger to appear warmer on camera, to talk about his doubts and fears. But they fail. He simply doesn't have any. He's machine-like and ultra-focused. The only thing that matters to Arnold is being numero uno in everything he sets out to achieve. Whereas many reality TV stars might have teared up on camera recounting the death of a loved one, Arnold simply lumps this anecdote in with other obstacles like a breakup with a girl or having his car stolen. In the proposed plotline introducing outsider Bud Cort to Gold's Gym, Cort is the prototypical 70s geek. In the gym sequences, Cort plays up his physical debility with bug-eyed amazement at the bodybuilder's strength and size. The contrast in the message is very clear. While Cort is a pathetic remnant of the 60s, Schwarzenegger, the film's central concern, is a titan. Pumping Iron was a foreshadowing of the snowballing momentum Arnold built in combination with his body. Arnold definitely had people to assist him in his rise to the top, but that level of networking is dependent on possessing a measure of value, and Arnold's rise to the top of bodybuilding, film and politics serves as an example of the self-reliant, self-made man as any I have ever explored. Clive James described Arnold as the first fully self-constructed celebrity persona, and Arnold would go on to double down on his evolving manufactured media image that most contemporary audiences know today. Schwarzenegger doesn't just climb the traditional ladder to success, he builds his own. Throughout the movie, there's an effortless, easygoing and zen-like flow to the way Arnold moves, lifts, and interacts, which contrasts the strain and effort projected by other minor characters in the film. To the audience, he makes the otherwise strenuous activity of lifting weights appealing, an activity which is something fun, life-affirming, and transcendent. Although attributed for sparking the fitness revolution of the 70s and 80s, Pumping Iron enjoyed fortuitous timing as part of a number of films at the time, from Rocky to Marathon Man to Flashdance. These films all focused on the allure of training. But the film's enormous popularity meant that bodybuilding eclipsed any other sort of lifting in popular consciousness. So much so that the words pumping iron and lifting weights and bodybuilding became synonymous for the same activity. Possessing an ever-present smile and a fun-loving manner, he disarms the overly serious focus of other lifters and aligns himself as the warm glow at the center of the bodybuilding universe, which others unconsciously gravitate towards. Much of this derived from the resonance of Arnold's on-screen charisma, a radiant warmth that contrasts with his powerfully intimidating physique. It's interesting that most bodybuilders and masculine tough guys from movies rarely smile in any of their publicity shots. Yet most of Arnold's photos capture a self-confident smile that exemplifies the nonchalance and comfort he feels in the display of both his body and personality. While the beaten down Mike Katz and the childlike Ferrigno use bodybuilding to compensate for stifling insecurity and weakness, Arnold used bodybuilding as his vehicle for upward mobility and achievement. Most of all, Arnold is comfortable in his skin, even at a time when bodybuilding was considered an underground refuge for insecure misfits and socially repellent deviants. He has a quick wit that verbally defeats the sly verbal digs of others, and this is key. He does it with disarming charm, laughter, and zero malice. Some question the ethics of Arnold's Machiavellian actions in the film as an example of toxic masculinity, but this is at odds with the reports of Arnold's nurturing qualities towards young lifters and his concrete loyalty shown to friends over the years. Arnold cultivated a strong camaraderie between the bodybuilders that wasn't just a contrivance for the camera. Although it is interesting that the two winners of each respective contest, Arnold and Ken Waller, were depicted as dominant bullies who needlessly undercut others to propel themselves forward. It's also interesting that neither man receives any comeuppance in the film, despite their Machiavellian ways. Both men emerge as winners, which only affirms and justifies their actions. For his exploits, Waller would be booed in his future appearances at contests, whereas Arnold received no such fan retribution from bodybuilding audiences. There's an authenticity to Arnold's screen time that belies the fact that this isn't Arnold just acting up for the cameras. This isn't Arnold playing a caricature, as he has later claimed. This is Arnold at his rawest, most real, and viscerally authentic. There's no presence of performative machismo, and from all accounts, Arnold displayed the same personality off camera as he did on. This was confirmed by Butler in interviews after the release of the film. He explained that the expressions and nuances of Arnold's character captured at the time of Pumping Iron were later lost as Arnold cultivated a more deliberate projection of what he revealed to the camera is his burgeoning public identity. In appealing to the mainstream, Arnold's public presence and every gesture and nuance of it had become as calculated for effect as his rhetoric in speech. I'd begun to notice that he was thinking about his expressions. I doubt he will ever have that natural expressiveness again that we captured in the film Pumping Iron. Pumping Iron was a foreshadowing of the masculine character traits that would take Arnold above and beyond the stratosphere of expectations of any of those who came before or after him. Arnold's a man of purpose, initiative, and action who gets things done with rugged individualism, a true leader of men who exceeds limitations and boundaries. And this highlights one of the key aspects of masculinity projected by the film, the hero's journey. A small-town boy with nothing but a vision who engineers his own creation and travels to a distant land with single-minded determination to conquer every challenge, every obstacle, and anyone who steps in his way. 50 years later, Arnold continues to be the personification of modern bodybuilding. His iconography replaced that of mid-century mainstream Mr. America and reformulated a new concept of emerging masculinity which ignited the imaginations and aspirations of many young men who saw Pumping Iron. While many viewed Arnold's muscularity as their own means to achieve the same level of success, they neglected to account for Arnold's real strengths, his attitude and mindset, which were the underlying foundations for his many achievements both in and beyond the bodybuilding arena. His muscle may have attracted eyeballs, but it was his personal magnetism that kept them focused on him. Even more telling is that Arnold wasn't afraid to let go of the gorilla suit to pursue other areas of his life and goals. He saw the loss of muscle as no threat to his masculinity, and his identity wasn't bound up in his appearance long term. Bodybuilding was simply a stepping stone that took him from one point to another. He may have defined his body, but his body didn't define him. Bodybuilding wasn't an identity that shackled him in arrested development to the exclusion of everything else. Pumping Iron laid the groundwork for the domination of hyper-male physiques that would occupy action movies for most of the 80s. "I'll be back" may have become Arnold's most identifiable catchphrase, but in a very real sense, all of Schwarzenegger's early films in the 80s are replays of the appeal of Pumping Iron, celebrations of Schwarzenegger's body and his masculine qualities. The supernatural body is undoubtedly the star, the locus of attraction, the film's purpose, and Arnold set an unbeatable precedent that other stars had to upsize to compete with.